How does the youth in Albania perceive the European Union, especially when it comes to this promise which was made 20 years ago at the Thessaloniki Summit that whole of the region will be a part of the European Union?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Well, this is a question that when we talk, generally in the society, there is a lot of talk about it. It's very present in the media, it's very present what policy and decision makers talk about. So young people hear about it a lot. My impression while talking to young people is that generally they know key concepts, but they're not so much aware of the role that they can play in this EU integration process or how they can actually contribute to speed up the process. It's mostly kind of a buzzword, so EU enlargement, EU integration process. And sometimes by getting stuck in this buzzword, then there is this gap on what can be done and how young people can relate to that. In one way, we're trying to fix this gap by, mentioning enlargement and EU integration process in RYCO's work, because RYCO can also be considered, as an organization that contributes to reconciliation in the region and therefore to the larger EU integration process. But also we're trying to engage with young people that are specifically attached to the EU enlargement. For example, the young European ambassadors. We're trying to involve them in our work as much as possible because this is a target group of young people that are well informed of the process. They can share insights and also incentivize other young people to actually be active.
Thank you. Let us proceed to the second question. It is mainly about the cooperation within the region and so RYCO and generally the region has this common idea of being the member of European Union. So as the politicians work on that, we also suppose that the youth works on that and that it helps, that it should provide some help and actually motivate the politicians to do a better work when it comes to EU integration, but generally when it comes to politics in the region. So how do you see the cooperation within the youth within the region?
Actually, that's very inspiring. And when I say inspiring, I really mean it. With RYCO, we work with different target groups of young people, with high schoolers, with students in university, with youth from civil society, young entrepreneurs, young activists. And whenever they have the opportunity to actually meet other peers from the region, doesn't matter their age, doesn't matter their background, it's always inspiring to see how immediately they bond and how this bond is actually long-lasting. So what we hear is that they actually want to come back to Albania, for example, once they visited with a high school, or even the teachers as well. Or we hear them that they want to spend the holidays next year, or they're willing to talk to their parents to actually break the stereotypes or the barriers that were formed, in the previous years. So I think that the more we provide platforms and channels for young people to meet among themselves, the more we'll be able to transform the narrative about the region and actually have this regional cooperation happening, because it actually starts there by having these opportunities happen, by having the young people travel in the region before they go somewhere else, and meeting their peers and finding common interests and common needs and issues, because this is what we see when we have them around, that they have way more in common than we actually tend to think.
Thank you, Alba. Last but not least, shortly, where do you see Albania in 5 to 10 years from this point on? What is your forecast, let's say it like this?
Me as still a young person for a couple of more months, I see Albania as a country that goes forward in the enlargement process. I see a political will from the EU side to actually have the region moving forward in the process, which maybe was not necessarily the case before. As a technical person who also is an expert on EU enlargement, I would say that I would see Albania still progressing on the EU acquis and working with internally in its institutional capacities to actually improve and prepare Albania to become a member state. In terms as a young professional, I see Albania actually in need to better understand the process, but definitely as part of the EU community. So there is a long way ahead of us in the 5, 10 next years, let's say. But there is only one way, and that is good to know. And it's, reassuring that the future is something that develops positively, and people are looking forward to that.
Thank you very much for this interview, Alba.
Thank you.